Hi guys, Paul again, and again my son doing some physical therapy, and he can't drive these days because he's had surgery on his hip, so I'm kind of sitting outside while he's going through it. Thought I would see what I could share again. Hopefully you can hear it well through the air conditioning, which has to blow because it's 111 degrees in Fresno where I live today. But my name is Paul Swearingen. I'm the nonpartisan evangelical, and I've been thinking a lot about conspiracy theories, how these became so ingrained in Christianity. So many of my Christian friends are big time strong believers in Christian conspiracy theories. And I've seen it coming for a long time, and in some ways I feel a little bit guilty that I haven't spoken out sooner. Our eschatology feeds into it. If that's kind of a big Christian word for some of you, eschatology means basically the study of how the world is going to come to an end. It's the Bible has a book of Revelations. People study it and come up with, oh, this verse must mean when I was a kid, it was Henry Kissinger who was definitely the Antichrist. And today, it's definitely Hillary Clinton or it's definitely Bill Gates. They are the Antichrist amongst the many, many Antichrists there have been in my lifetime. I think the Antichrist is a spirit the Bible is talking about that is all around us all the time, and we see it on a regular basis. I don't believe there's a 666 tattoo coming. It's certainly not going to be in the COVID-19 vaccine. And don't believe anybody or listen to anybody who tells you that it is. Somewhere around the early 2000s, I really began to see these things taking hold in Christianity. And I did start talking to people about it, but there was just this sort of, Paul, why are you always talking about this political stuff? And I was probably a little bit afraid. And every time I did sort of lightly talk about politics, somebody left our church. I thought, man, this stuff is really weird. My wife and I had some very kind people that invited us to go back to the National Prayer Breakfast somewhere near the end of the Obama administration. And actually, we sat very close to the Obamas, as close as you could get with Secret Service and all that there. And loved watching Louis Gohmert. If you know him, he's a Christian legislator. And I don't mean Christian in that I don't believe he's a Christian. But on that day at the National Prayer Breakfast, he was very sweet guy, co-chaired the event with a Democrat, and then when you watch him in his life, he's so stridently partisan, you think that's not even the same guy. We're at the National Prayer Breakfast, all of these legislators around, and you think this is really sweet, a prayer breakfast, and then you realize my wife and I felt like something weird was going on. And you realize now, if you watch the show The Family on Netflix, that it's not all bad, but there's just a lot of power brokering going on at a National Prayer Breakfast. Getting there, getting position, getting power is what Christianity had become much about being a part of American political power. And then other countries were using this prayer breakfast to get access to our legislators, and you start to think, wow, our prayer breakfast has become a power brokering event. And then years later, as my wife had moved into elected office, we were invited to meet a national candidate had been a national candidate for office. We were told this person's amazing. We want you to meet. And so we did, and we found this person to be very kind and nice and had almost no substance whatsoever. And you start to find out in Christianity, there's this idea of we don't care if the person we're elected is qualified for the job. We don't really even care if they're moral or have integrity or can do the freaking job. All we care about is, do they stand for our issues? And I hear this all the time from people now. Well, it's policy versus even if our laws are subverted by this elected official, even if The integrity isn't there. We don't care as long as our Christian morals are being codified into law. And then mix that with an eschatology that says the world is going to get ever worse, incredibly bad. This unbelievable evil is going to rise up. And you have people who are looking to see where they can say, there it is, there it is, there it is. He's it, she's it, they're it. And I've seen it all my life. That's the Antichrist. That's the Antichrist. That's the Antichrist. Jesus is coming back this year because of this, this, and this. Oh, wait, he didn't come this year. He's coming the next year because of this, this, and this. It's never ending. And then you add a modicum of faith. We believe with faith rather than what we see. And all of a sudden, conspiracies become very easy to float. So we have QAnon and other things going around, and I've had prophets in my life saying, there, that's it. Go after that. And I've had people get very angry because as a pastor, I refused to partner with those ideas. But I didn't speak out, and now I see how prevalent they are and how much power they have over evangelicalism. I sat one day with an evangelical leader, and I had a chance to meet many of them. We had a conversation, and this evangelical leader had spoken the night before in an event I was at, and he had just railed against our then California Governor Jerry Brown. And I had told that official, like, man, I got to tell you, I loved what you shared through the service, but just ripping our governor, it just doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem honoring, or it just, something didn't seem right about that. The next day, that evangelical leader called me, and we got together, and he sat tearfully in front of me and said God had told him some time before that he was not to talk about politics in his services anymore. And he said, I want to make a confession in front of you, Paul, that I'm not to do that, and I'm not going to do it anymore. Well, it took about 3 days before I saw that person speak again and again, lighting up our governor. And today, that evangelical leader writes a blog and has a newsletter that I'm on the mailing list for. And it's one of the darkest, nastiest political commentaries that I see on an ongoing basis. Why am I standing up and saying, evangelical church, we have to change? Because I've seen these things. I know a lot of these people, and I've seen them become increasingly impacted by ongoing sort of conspiratorial, conspiracy theory thinking, this overarching mindset that we have to be Republican and conservative and pass our laws so that God can do his thing in our country. My wife and I did a podcast on it on Saturday. You can watch the video on my Facebook feed and on my YouTube channel. And I speak up a lot now because I actually need to confess that I didn't speak up maybe when I should have, when some people could still be rescued from this mindset before getting ensnared by it. In John chapter 11, I believe, I should have known it off the top of my head, but the Pharisees, the religious leaders of Jesus' day, were talking about why they were thinking their moral code would allow them to have Jesus murdered, executed for false charges. And they said a really interesting thing. They said, if he goes on doing what he's doing and people believe it, the Romans will come and they will take our temple and take our country, take our place and take our country. And what they were saying is, if Jesus and this self-sacrificial, non-political, disruptive message gets out, then our attempts to politically make Israel great again are going to be overturned, and we're going to lose our religion and our country. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. Even after they went ahead and had Jesus murdered, their moral character was fluid when the means to the end were, we need to make our country great again by codifying biblical laws. And we're seeing evangelical leaders start to be outed for some things that they shouldn't have been doing, like Jerry Falwell Jr., because your morality and your integrity become fluid when you start to get ensconced in this conspiracy theory thinking. The ends of keeping that evil out of control is so important that God will allow you to do anything to that end. I wish I had spoken up more when I could, but that's what I have to share today. I just want to remind you, the Bible is the message of the good news, not the, hey, the world's getting darker and going to hell in a handbasket. Let's make sure to share that and scare the hell out of people. It's the good news. The good news is this. God has made himself the creator of the universe in whatever form we see him available to all of us. And he says, I want to pour out my spirit. I want to pour out the characteristics of who I am on everybody, on all flesh, it says. That's a good message. That's a message that can change the world. And that's the message I want to share. Not listen to cuckoo-anon, as I like to call it, and other crazy conspiracy theories so that you can know where evil is around the world. The Bible says God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but of sound mind, of self-control, of power and love and sound mind. Let's walk in that and not put a bunch of fear and darkness and look for evil on others. I'm Paul Swearingen. I'm the nonpartisan evangelical. Go to my website, npepodcast.com. Sign up for my Insiders news list. And if you want to help support us, we're a for-profit ministry, so you don't get a tax write-off for it, but you get cool things if you join us on our Patreon site. Go to nppodcast.com, click on that Patreon button in the upper right-hand corner. You can subscribe, get a whole bunch of cool stuff to help support the ministry. We want to get a social media manager to get the message out there more, so I'd love you to help and love those of you who are already doing so. All right, love you guys. Don't get pulled into conspiracy theory thinking. It's not good for us as human beings. I'll talk more about that later this week. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.